Rule 72 Subject Matter and Applicability of General Rules. Section 1. Subject Matter of Special Proceedings. Rules of Special Proceedings are provided for in the following cases.
A. Settlement of estate of deceased persons. B. Escheat. C. Guardianship and custody of children. D. Trustees. E. Adoption. F. Rescission and revocation of adoption. G. Hospitalization of insane persons. H. Habeas corpus. 1. Change of name. J. Voluntary dissolution of corporations. K. Judicial approval of voluntary recognition of minor natural children. L. Constitution of family home. M. Declaration of absence and death. N. Cancellation of correction of entries in the civil registry. This provision lists the exclusive subject matters covered by special proceedings under the rules of court. Unlike ordinary civil actions, which are adversarial and usually involve a plaintiff and defendant, special proceedings are generally non-adversarial or summary in nature, and they are designed to establish a status, right, or particular fact rather than to enforce liability against another party.
Key idea: if a case falls within any of the enumerated matters, it is governed by the rules on special proceedings, not ordinary civil action rules, unless otherwise provided.
Each item has a specific legal purpose, seg. Settlement of estate of deceased persons governs probate, administration, and distribution of assets of a deceased person. Escheat allows the state to take ownership of property when there are no legal heirs. Guardianship and custody of children determines who will care for minors or incapacitated persons. Trustees involves appointment and supervision of trustees managing property for beneficiaries. Adoption/rescission/revocation, legal creation and termination of parent-child relationships. Hospitalization of insane persons, judicial commitment for mental health treatment when necessary. Habeas corpus, remedy to challenge illegal detention. Change of name, judicial approval to change one's registered name. Voluntary dissolution of corporations, court-supervised dissolution process initiated by corporations. Judicial approval of voluntary recognition of minor natural children establishes filiation under older legal frameworks. Constitution of family home, legal creation of a family home exempt from execution under certain conditions. Declaration of absence and death determines legal status of missing persons. Cancellation or correction of civil registry entries, correction of errors in birth, marriage, or death records. Legal effect. Once a matter falls under this list, it triggers the special procedural rules, which often differ in filing, notice requirements, jurisdiction, and evidentiary standards compared to ordinary civil actions. Key points. Special proceedings apply only to the matters enumerated in Section 1. They are generally in rem or quasi-in rem proceedings, focusing on status or property, not liability. They follow special procedural rules, not the ordinary civil action rules. The list is exclusive and controlling for classification purposes. Many involve judicial determination of status, capacity, or property administration. Marcos died intestate leaving several parcels of land and bank deposits. His alleged heirs filed a petition in court to settle his estate, determine his heirs, pay his debts, and distribute the remaining properties. The opposing party argues that the petition should be dismissed because it is not an ordinary civil action and does not involve a cause of action against a defendant. Is the contention correct? Explain. No, the contention is not correct. The petition is proper as a special proceeding for the settlement of the estate of a deceased person. Under Rule 72, Section 1A of the Rules of Court, the settlement of the estate of deceased persons is expressly classified as a special proceeding. Special proceedings are not ordinary civil actions because they do not involve the enforcement of a cause of action against an opposing defendant, but instead seek the determination of status, rights, or the administration and distribution of property of a deceased person. Since the case involves the administration and distribution of the estate of a deceased person, it is correctly filed as a special proceeding for settlement of estate, and the absence of a traditional plaintiff-defendant cause of action is not a ground for dismissal.
Section 2. Applicability of Rules of Civil Actions. In the absence of special provisions, the rules provided for in ordinary actions shall be, as far as practicable, applicable in special proceedings.
This provision establishes the suppletorily application of the rules on ordinary civil actions to special proceedings. Special proceedings have their own specific procedural rules, but when those rules are silent or incomplete, the rules on ordinary civil actions apply in a supplementary manner, provided they are practical and consistent with the nature of the proceeding. Key legal effect. The rules of court are not separate and isolated systems. Special proceedings are governed primarily by their own rules, but gap filling is allowed using rules on ordinary civil actions. Application is conditional only as far as practicable, meaning the rule must be appropriate and not inconsistent with the nature of the special proceeding. Example implication. If the rules on settlement of estate do not specify a procedural detail, e.g., modes of service or filing requirements, courts may apply the corresponding rules under ordinary civil actions. Key points. Ordinary civil action rules apply suppletorily to special proceedings. This applies only when there is no specific rule in special proceedings. Application must be practicable and not inconsistent with the nature of special proceedings. Prevents procedural gaps in special proceedings. Ensures procedural uniformity within the rules of court. In a petition for settlement of estate, the probate court was confronted with a procedural issue on whether a motion for extension of time to file an inventory of the estate is allowed. The rules on special proceedings do not expressly provide for such motion. One of the heirs argues that since it is not expressly allowed, the motion must be denied outright. Is the argument correct? Explain. No, the argument is not correct. The motion for extension may be allowed if it is consistent with the rules of court and is practicable. Under Rule 72, Section 2 of the Rules of Court, in the absence of special provisions governing special proceedings, the rules provided for in ordinary civil actions shall, as far as practicable, apply in special proceedings. This means that procedural gaps in special proceedings may be filled by applying the rules on ordinary civil actions, provided they are not inconsistent with the nature of the proceeding. Since the rules on special proceedings do not expressly prohibit or regulate motions for extension in this situation, the court may apply the rules on ordinary civil actions. Hence, the motion is not automatically invalid and may be granted if warranted by justice and practicality. Shecker v. Estate of Alice O. Shecker. GR number 157912 December 13, 2007. Alice O. Shecker died, and a petition for the settlement of her estate was filed. During the probate proceedings, the petitioner filed an initiatory pleading without a certification against forum shopping and failed to comply with certain procedural requirements ordinarily required in civil actions. The petitioner argued that these requirements do not apply because probate is a special proceeding. Is the petitioner's contention correct? Explain. No. The petitioner's contention is incorrect. Under Rule 72, Section 2 of the Rules of Court, the rules governing ordinary civil actions apply to special proceedings, as far as practicable. In Shecker v. Estate of Alice O. Shecker, the Supreme Court held that the certification against forum shopping and other procedural requirements applicable to ordinary civil actions likewise apply to special proceedings unless a special rule provides otherwise. Since the petition for settlement of estate is a special proceeding and there is no rule exempting it from these procedural requirements, the petitioner was required to comply with them. Therefore, the petitioner's contention is without merit. The procedural requirements applicable to ordinary civil actions, including the certification against forum shopping, apply to special proceedings when practicable. Examples of civil procedure rules applicable to special proceedings. The Supreme Court has held that the following rules also apply, unless inconsistent. Filing and service of pleadings. Motions. Omnibus motion rule. Subpoena. Computation of periods. Motion for new trial. Modes of discovery. Trial before commissioners. Demurrer to evidence. Appeals. Appeal in special proceedings. The procedure for appeal in a special proceeding is generally the same as in an ordinary civil action unless a special rule provides otherwise. Earnest efforts toward compromise. The Civil Code generally requires family members to exert earnest efforts to compromise before filing certain civil actions. Does this apply to special proceedings? No. Because a special proceeding is not a suit for enforcement of a right against another person. It merely seeks a judicial declaration of a status, right, or fact. Manalo v. C.A. GR number 129242, January 16, 2001. Sal Minyo died intestate, leaving a 1 billion Cuban pesos estate. He was survived by his wife, Dayanara, and their 5 children. Dayanara filed a petition for the issuance of letters of administration. Charlene, one of the children, opposed the petition on the ground that there was no allegation or genuine effort to settle the dispute amicably among the family members before filing the petition. Should the opposition be sustained? No. The opposition should not be sustained. Article 151 of the Family Code requires a verified allegation of earnest efforts toward a compromise only in suits between members of the same family. However, in Manalo v. Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court held that this requirement applies only to ordinary civil actions and not to special proceedings, such as petitions for the settlement of an estate. Here, the petition for the issuance of letters of administration is a special proceeding instituted to settle the estate of the decedent, not an ordinary civil action to enforce or protect a right. Hence, the requirement of alleging earnest efforts to compromise does not apply. Therefore, the opposition should be denied, as the absence of an allegation of earnest efforts toward a compromise does not bar a petition for the settlement of an estate. Ordinary actions versus special proceedings versus special civil actions. An ordinary action is an adversarial proceeding in which one party, the plaintiff, sues another, the defendant, for the enforcement or protection of a violated or threatened right, or for the prevention or redress of a wrong. It is generally based on a cause of action and is governed primarily by Rules 1 to 56. Its usual parties are the plaintiff and defendant, and its judgment generally operates in personam. Examples include actions for collection of a sum of money, damages, and specific performance. A special proceeding, on the other hand, is a remedy by which a party seeks to establish a status, right, or particular fact, rather than to enforce a cause of action against another person. It is generally non-adversarial or summary in nature at the outset, although it may become adversarial when oppositors intervene. It is usually initiated by a petitioner, with interested parties, heirs, creditors, or the state participating as the circumstances require. Special proceedings are governed primarily by Rule 72 to 109, and under Rule 72, Section 2, the rules on ordinary actions apply suppletorily, insofar as practicable and when not inconsistent with the special proceeding.
Examples include probate, settlement of estate, adoption, guardianship, escheat, habeas corpus, and change of name.
Its proceedings are generally in rem or quasi-in rem, depending on the nature of the proceeding. A special civil action is still an adversarial action between parties, but it is governed by special procedural rules because of the particular nature of the remedy involved.
Unlike a special proceeding, it generally involves a cause of action or a judicial controversy between parties.
It is governed primarily by Rules 62 to 71, with the ordinary rules applying suppletorily when allowed. Its parties are generally a plaintiff and defendant or petitioner and respondent, depending on the particular special civil action.
Examples include interpleader, declaratory relief, certiorari, prohibition, mandamus, expropriation, foreclosure of mortgage, and quieting of title.